So, good morning, everybody. As we see people filtering in to our first digital session, Coffee with the CEO, hosted by DMG Events. And we'd like to welcome everybody this morning. I'm from a cold and icy Cape Town, and our guests on screen, Osorio Lucas, the CEO of Maputo Port Development Company. Welcome. From a hot and windy Maputo, I imagine. Yes?
Quite cold for our criteria, but it's fine.
Okay. And a welcome to John Stanford from World Global. John, you're in the UK. It's always cold and cloudy.
In the UK, wet and windy.
Wet and windy. Okay, great. Well, as I mentioned, it's a pleasure to have you both here and to launch the first of our digital series. We say Coffee with the CEO. We've all had our coffee this morning, so I'm hoping everybody on this platform today has got their warm cup of coffee or their tea, whatever their preference is. To start off, before I hand over to John, who's going to be moderating today, just to give you some brief background, DMG is in partnership with Maputo Port Development to host the Transport Evolution Mozambique Forum and Showcase, which was scheduled to take place this year. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we have decided to postpone that to April 2021. And we are looking forward to doing this event next year and getting back to live events. We have a very long and proud history with Maputo Port Development Company, starting, I think, 2012, 2013, Osorio, when we first started visiting each other's shows. And we've also recently been in partnership with World Global. And John Stanford is the regional director for Europe in World Global. He's been with the company for 15 years. John's going to start off by asking Osorio some questions. We're going to look at a presentation that Osorio has prepared for us as well. And then later in the session, we will invite the CEO of DP World, Christian Roeder, and the CEO of Grindrod Terminals, Vishal Deeplaul, to join for some questions and answers. Please, if you do check the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, post as many questions as you like, and between John and Osorio and the rest of the panelists, they will attempt to answer as many as they can. There are no more house rules. You don't have to turn off your cell phones if you are an attendee. We can't hear you. And if you need the loo, use it. But without further ado, we're going to proceed with this morning's proceedings. And John, I'm going to hand over to you to get going. Thanks so much, and good luck and enjoy, gentlemen.
Daniel, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for for inviting me. I'm going to introduce Vishal and Christian a little bit later after Osorio's presentation, but if I can introduce you all more formally to Osorio Lucas. Osorio holds a degree in law and also is a master in maritime law from 97 to 2008. He was a lecturer at UEM and subsequently was a legal advisor for the board of directors of CFM, the Mozambican National Ports and Railway Company. In 2003, he became the non-executive board director in a number of ports and railway concessions, including MPDC. So he has extensive experience in negotiating concession decrees across key ports and railways in the region, and is also a co-author of several legal documents, including environmental quality standards, proposal of law of succession, and the book Comments to the Family Law. Since 2012, January 2012, in fact, he's been Chief Executive Officer at MPDC. So welcome, Osorio. If I can hand over to you, we'll go through your presentation, and then there are going to be some questions coming back. And please, anybody else have questions, please do raise them. Osorio, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And thanks for all the participants and for inviting me for this presentation. I'll run a quick presentation on how MPDC is facing and engaging on these new times out of COVID, that it's impacting everybody's life, and we have to learn to live with the current situation. So I'll endeavor to give a broader sense of how MPDC is dealing with the situation, and certainly listen from other participants as to what other advice they have to ask about the questions I hope. So what is MPDC? We are a concessionaire of Maputo Port from 2003, and we have as shareholders the state-owned entity called CFM for Ports and Railways of Mozambique with 49% share, and Port Zindico that is comprised by DP World, one of the leading container terminal companies in the world, Grindrod, a leading South African logistic operator, and Mozambique gestor. Prior to that, MPDC had other shareholders like Liscombe, Skanska, or Mercy Dogs and Harbours from UK. What is the role of MPDC as a whole? We have the so-called master lease concession, whereby we are the port authority, we are the port operator, we do the marine services, and then have a different sub-concessionaires that operate under the umbrella of MPDC for the car terminal, coal, magnetite, sugar, fruits, and so on and so forth, as you can easily see. Why is Maputo relevant in our continent? Our geographical location makes MPDC a special port for the region. We provide outlet for South Africa, Swaziland, and Zimbabwe, and we can be an alternative to Zambia and Botswana eventually. Besides Maputo, we have two additional main ports in Mozambique, Beira in center, serving basically Malawi, Zimbabwe, and DRC and Zambia, and Nacala, serving Malawi and Zambia potentially. When we look at Maputo, we need to understand that this is more of a regional port than a local port. I used to say that Maputo port is a South African port based in Mozambique, because as we will see a little later, just close to 70% of the volume that is handled in Maputo comes from South Africa. When we look at the distances, for example, between two of the main ports in South Africa, Richards Bay, which is the main bulk port, and Durban, which is the main container port, you will see that from the main cities or main economic clusters of South Africa, like Johannesburg or Pretoria, Maputo tends to be closer, as we are also well located when compared to certain cities of Zimbabwe. The key issue, however, is it's not enough to have a strategic geographical location if that is not combined also with a good quality of service and a borderless kind of connection, which is one of the challenges that our corridors, no matter which corridor you choose, I think it's the average situation that Africa needs to think through, is the need of having borderless connections between the different countries. Because you can think, for example, if you look at Johannesburg against Richards Bay or Maputo, you'll see that we are an average of 550 kilometers against 640 or 780. But we have 550 with borders in between, one border, that can take anything between 3 hours to 1 day of processing against 640 kilometers with no borders. So thinking about cutting borders and integrating is probably one of the key challenges or opportunities that our ports have in the region. Now, for us to compete, we need to be a customer-centered port. We need to think about the customer before anything. And with that in mind, we have made a number of investments. Today, Maputo port is a 24-hour port. That needs to be seen with a pinch of salt, because you can have your port operating 24 hours from gate to gate, but you need your border to operate 24 hours for you to say that you are a 24-hour port. So we operate 24 hours at the port, but the border operates now 20 hours a day, 18 hours rather a day, but okay, we are a 24-hour port. We have 12 meters of quay in average. I will talk a little later about the investment we are doing despite of COVID, by the way, where we are bringing our 1,000 meters of quay down to 15, 16 meters, which will allow us to operate baby caves, improving our competitive advantage. We have a channel with minus 14 meters, and we currently accommodate handymax, handysizes, and Panamax. But after the investment, which we hope to be completed by end of December this year, COVID subject again, and I will let you know why, we hope to have 1,000 meters of quay and be able to operate handysizes. Besides the geographical location of the port, we can offer bunkering services, faster turnaround time. We believe we have competitive rates. We have an efficient port, and we are a young team. Just to give you a sense from my EXCO team, The average age is anything below 45 years old. And half of them are ladies. But by the way, I'm not exactly running the ladies' agenda. It's just it happens that they are ladies and they are competent, they're very vital. They can also create different kind of challenges, but you take the best of it. In terms of growth, the port has been, the concession was in 2003, as you can see. By 2003, this port handled 5 million tons. Last year, we handled 21 million tons consolidated, which was the biggest volume handled at any time. You might ask yourself, why is that yellow bar there? Because the yellow bar was the highest volume ever before the concession. Our independence was in 1975, and until 1976, Richards Bay was being built. It was not operational. So Maputo was the main option for bulk. After Richards Bay was developed, and then this country was subjected to military stabilization, the volumes came down up to 5 million tons. And after concession, the number of investments in infrastructure, systems, and people, the port could regain its influence in the region and in the market. Now, you remember I referred about the influence of transit on our business. You will see on the first pie chart that 77% of total volume in the port is bulk, with 11% being containers. From this total volume of 21 million last year, 65% alone represents transit, of which 98% is then South Africa. So addressing issues with cross-border are fundamental to address the future growth of the port. And because of that, we are redesigning a master plan. We have a master plan in place since 2010. We have a 10-year process of redesigning our master plan, which will be completed by the end of July this year, where we are thinking this concession up to 2043, which is the term of our concession, and the main focus being infrastructure, people, and systems. When you look at why is Maputo port relevant to our local economy, because we said Maputo is a transit port, 65% of our volume comes from South Africa. So why is this port relevant to our local economy? We employ 2,000 people plus direct employment, just close 10,000 people every day or minus plus on stevedoring, supply of equipment, and so on and so forth. We weigh something close to 25% or 24% rather of income from customs authority, and we have a relevant contribution in terms of concession fees. The system in our concession is we pay fixed fees, around $7 million a year, and we pay variable fees that are 15% of our gross revenue. So we contribute out of concession fees with close to $22, $23 million a year to the government. In addition to that, we contribute to our economy by having a number of more than 1,000 active suppliers, of which close to 700 suppliers are Mozambican companies, okay, on stevedoring, food supply, transport, equipment supply, infrastructure, civil works, and so on and so forth. So it's a considerable endeavor. Just last year, we spent on procurement only $115 million with suppliers. Most of this money is spent with local suppliers, by local suppliers and with Mozambicans. Now, this is the story up to now. We are now going through rough seas, not only MPDC, everyone. I think this COVID pandemic was a surprise to everyone. We are all learning how to live with it or how to live without, but I'm more convinced it's more how to live with the pandemic than how to live without the pandemic. We are all learning from WHO, different countries. We are learning how to live with it, and we are not an exception. So if you look at this graph, it indicates the number of trucks crossing the border from South Africa before the pandemic, the decision, which, by the way, we were not affected as a port with the discovery or the outcome of the pandemic in China. Was anything between end of December, early January. The results of the port in January, February, and March this year were the best ever, by the way. So we were not affected with the issue with the demand side. We need to take into account that China is the main destination port for products crossing Maputo port. Surprisingly or not, the COVID pandemic in China didn't affect the port. Why? Because the areas that were materially affected were not the areas to which our products were going. But when South Africa decided sometime end March, early April, to declare a phase 5 lockdown, the port was almost shut down. From 27 March to 21 April this year, we had 0 trucks crossing the border, and the volumes of the port just did a dip. You can see that that yellow line indicates the average of trucks crossing the port every day. So we see that when the lockdown was announced in South Africa, phase 5, the volumes did just a dip to 0. Then there was a declaration of state of emergency in Mozambique in April. It didn't affect much the port because you need to remember we are a 65% transit port. Then South Africa starts reopening their economy gradually, and you start seeing the trucks going back into not normal, but picking up. Then South Africa goes back to level 4, which allows us to receive an average of 250 trucks against an average of 450 trucks in a normal day. And eventually South Africa moves to phase 3 and the trucks are picking up. Why is that important? Although we are a bulk port, and one would expect a bulk port to be more railway driven than road, here the equation is different. We run around 22 to 25% of our products by rail and 75 by road. Although we are talking about coal, magnetite, chrome, nickel. This is in line with the issue of addressing the border challenge. It's probably the second biggest structural issue that we need to address, which is to realign the alignment, if I may say, between road and rail, despite of the nature of cargo. So you will see that the volumes in the port post-COVID came down. So and again, I repeat, when you think COVID for Maputo port, don't think January, February, March. You need to start from the declaration of phase 5 for lockdown in South Africa. Late March, and that's when you see the yellow line just doing the dip. The same will happen with the port calls. The number of port calls reduced. Now, you are facing a problem. Like I said to some friends of mine, if a lion comes in front of you and you are only you and the lion, you have few choices. One is you entertain a dialogue with the lion, hoping that the lion will understand you. It's not likely, but you try. The other option is you leave the lion to make a choice of which part of your body the lion you want. I prefer the last option, which is I choose which part I want to give to the lion, hoping that the lion will fed itself. So we decided to take charge of our own destination by taking some initiatives. Some of them are standard initiatives, controlling temperature, making sure that everyone uses sanitizers or that. We created a green line, a hotline, to make sure that our staff have access to doctors at any time for questions, because I suspect, and I would like to leave here a note, that I am not sure what is the biggest impact of COVID on people. Is the loss of lives, is the loss of jobs, or is the psychological impact on people? The loss of confidence, the not knowing what is your life today or tomorrow. I suspect it's a combination of those three, but I am particularly concerned with the anxiety levels, the stress levels to which people are going to. So we decided to create a hotline through which our staff is free to call at no cost, sharing their concerns, if they have fever, if they think that the fever is COVID related or not. And it did help. I follow up on that line, and I know that people go more and more attending into it. Now, socially, we have close to 40% of our staff at home. This is direct stuff. Then you have the issue of stevedoring, transporters. So by the port going close to 60% down on volumes, the impact on the economy is huge. The number of trucks came down from an average of 450 to 250, meaning truck drivers are down, fuel supply is down, maintenance of cars is down, revenue on the border is down. Then you have 40% of your staff at home, fully paid, but still at home. And you need to take care of these people. They are at home, and you need to ask yourself, if you have to stay for 3 months at home, even if every month somebody pays your salary, what happens to your psychology? And this is one of the things I don't see too much on these TV networks. There is a lot of vote counting and how many people are sick, how many people are dead. That is very important. But how many people are emotionally affected? And what will these people be when the pandemic is declared resolved, which I'm not sure whether that will happen and when that will happen. But anyway, we have to deal with the social side of it, but then we are running a business. We had to move from an income statement focus to a cash flow focus. We are basically swimming on rough sea, knowing that sharks and other animals are close to you, you need to survive. This is where we are now, not only in MPDC, I suspect everyone. So we decided to refocus ourselves into a cash flow control, reducing a level of investment, keeping our investments to critical investment only. But critical investment means not only the investment that keeps us alive today, but the investment that keeps us ready to start again when the COVID or the impacts of COVID are over. And that involves keeping your people on a high mood, training your people as much as you can, and investing in infrastructure that would have to be ready if, for example, by 5th of January 2021, you have a vaccine, for example. Now you have a vaccine, but your system is destroyed. So we need to keep the system alive. We are working a lot on electronic systems, because I suspect that one of the lessons of pandemic is that you have to rely more and more on systems. Actually, this meeting is one example. We have designed a conference in Maputo, and the conference was not possible, but people are engaging, they're talking business. So we are also investing a lot in converting the port into a digital port with a number of initiatives so that we can make this port ready for 2021 going forward. There is this statement, doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Timothy Geithner, ex-treasurer of Obama in his first government, which is bad plan beats no plan. You better have a bad plan than having no plan. So we maybe have a bad plan, but we have a plan, and the plan is working. There are some risks that we have to deal with. One is uncertainty. I think I spoke recently about it. And the other one is dependency on external markets. Now, as I said before, the COVID is there. No matter what we think, it's there. There are some investments we decided not to stop. Key rehabilitation, bringing the our birds from -12 meters to -15 or 16 meters. It's a critical investment for the future. So these investments are continuing. Investing on stacking capacity, this is continuing. Investing on unmanned way bridges, or systemizing the port so that tomorrow we don't rely on people to deliver. This is not stopping. So we are accelerating the digitalization process in the port. We are definitely looking at reducing costs. That's the mantra of the day. Everybody will tell you that. We are redefining the strategy of the port. We have hired a consultant that's just finalized the new vision for the port. And we kept investment on strategic assets. Now, we are beyond simple infrastructure port. We are a port for people. We do social projects. There is one specifically I would like to share with everyone here. We call it Port Plus. What is this Port Plus? We have in our staff now 15 disabled, I don't know if this is the right word, it's what they're called, I don't think it's right, but people with different conditions, I would say. Down syndrome, blind people, mood and deaf, physically disabled, working at this port. And one of the questions that were raised to me in the road was, now with the COVID, are you going to stop this project? I said, no, if we stop this project, then we become the victims of COVID. We are losing our soul, and I'm not certainly willing to accept that. probably because I'm also physically disabled, so it touches me a lot. But my main goal is the port can lose somebody, but it cannot lose its soul. This is the port on the left, the port as it was prior to the concession, and on the right side, the port as it is today. I think this is the vision of the port in future. This is the master plan that we are developing. On the right side, we have the Maputo side, and then the plans to occupy Katembe and Matola for the different kind of cargoes, bulk, break bulk, liquids, grains, and so on and so forth. This is the port of the future. So the main message I would like to leave behind is we are all going through uncertain times. We are all very scary, and we have to be, but there is a day of tomorrow. We need to find a way of living a panic of today with a plan for tomorrow. So I will repeat, bad plan beats no plan. So to conclude, there is a mantra I use in my room every day. We try hard, we fail hard, no matter. You try again. We keep failing, but we fail better every day. Thank you.
Osorio, thank you so much. You covered an enormous amount there in quite a short space of time. I think we're going to need to try to see if we can unpack some of these things. So if I could invite our other two panelists to come onto screen so that people can see, Vishal and Christian, I'll introduce you now. So Vishal Deeplaul is trained and practiced as a metallurgist in Australia before returning to South Africa, working with Mintech, and has now amassed over 25 years of experience in the mining industry, with over 12 years in bulk mining, much of that with BHP and South 32. Vishal joined Grindrod as CEO of their terminals business in October 2017, and is responsible for the bulk terminal operations across Maputo, Richards Bay and Walvis Bay. Vishal also admits to a passion for people and performance and a natural win-win attitude to life and business. I think that'll stand you in good stead, Vishal. Welcome, good to see you. Christian, Chris Roeder. Chris has 20 years of experience in the logistics business, and after completing a management education at Maersk Germany in 2003, he worked with AP Moller Maersk Group in a number of countries before moving on to join a local trucking company, J&J Transport in Mozambique. Chris established the warehousing division from greenfield project status to a highly profitable business unit. He's now CEO for DP World in Maputo and is a director of Maputo Intermodal Container Depot, the MICD, and has extensive experience in cross-border trucking, warehousing, inland container depot management, clearing and forwarding, and of course shipping. So welcome, Chris. Good to see you both. So we've got you as a panelist, and people are already starting to send some questions through. As best I can, I'll see if I can kind of categorize them, and hopefully we can at least try and touch on as many of those questions as possible. What I'd like to do, if I may, is just start off with a question. And Osorio, let me put this to you first. If we can focus on some of the costs, one of the things that we in More Global are facing with our clients at the moment is looking at the underlying costs and the bottom line a lot, and the cost of COVID-19 to an operation with the huge impact on MPDC operations and development plans. Do you have any idea of the cost of COVID-19 on your business? And for all three of you, I'm not necessarily expecting hard figures, but maybe percentage terms or delays to the business. How would you respond to that?
Thank you, John. The impact on cost structure of the port is huge. There is no way denying that. I would say that the cost is somewhat at the 40% minus plus if you compare year on year. And the main being, you have the financial cost, the loss on revenue, it's a reality. But you have also the unseen impacts. You have infrastructure works taking place. You need expats to be in the place to do the job, and the airplanes are down, right? You cannot do anything. You have to deal with the issue of number of trucks crossing the borders. It's not possible because the borders are closed. Then you have to deal with issues of people that you have to keep them at home with all the social impacts that I have referred to before. So the financial and social costs to the port are considerable, but we have worked what we call a contingency plan that allowed us to react very fast. The good news is when we saw the COVID happening in China, because China is the main market for the port, we immediately developed a contingency plan. And we had time up to March to survive. And then when the COVID started impacting Mozambique and South Africa, the plan was in place. And we are arriving through the tough seas with some resistance.
So thanks. Well, Chris, I'll just wait for you just to put a glass to your mouth there. But have you got any other thoughts from the terminal operations yourself? How would you add to that?
Yeah, I think just it's pretty, Osorio covered pretty much everything. From our side, the main point is obviously the revenues have been dropping and we expect them to be lower for the next couple of months. We still have to see how this all pans out. We're trying to adjust our cost structure, and obviously a situation like this forces us to be innovative. So we've actually tackled things that we haven't looked in before, and I think maybe we come out a bit stronger after this, even with a more solid, stronger setup here locally.
I'm going to introduce one of the questions that came through on the Q&A. What are the investments that you're prioritizing now for 2020 and maybe beyond that? Who would like to kind of respond to that one? Yeah, Vishal.
Yeah, John, I think, thanks for that. From a Grindrod perspective, we've got 3 concessions, which is the Maputo terminal, doing magnetite and coal primarily, the car terminal on the main port, and then a soft handling component on the main port as well, which is known as GML. I think whilst we've seen revenues impacted, particularly in April and May, I have to say that we're seeing a positive volume increase through the main terminal, which is TCM for us, Matola, which is positive. And I think the view that we did was obviously batten down the hatches, manage costs in an appropriate way. However, with regards to investments, I think the view that we took was no compromise on sustaining capital. I think it's important to be able to have a level of service and be able to deliver an efficient service to the port. So, prudent with the costs ahead of ourselves, but we've managed to probably push it out later in the year, but not to compromise the expenditure in terms of our sustaining capital. Thankfully, much of our development work with regards to expansion for the Maputo terminals at a phase where it's back through to the drawing board and introspection in terms of building the business case. But we continue to further the work in that space as well. So I think you have to be prudent, but not foolish in terms of your approach to capital, because you have to have a belief that the world will get back to a new normal in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. And I think, Osorio, you mentioned in your presentation about a number of points that you needed to concentrate on, and one of them was around digitization. And again, we've had a question come in, which I think is relevant here. How have you managed to focus, or have you got examples of the sorts of things that you've looked at from a digitalization perspective that you're now needing to bring forward as a result of the current pandemic?
Yeah, actually that was one of the issues I was going to comment just after Vishal. I'll give you a simple example. When the border was working efficiently to our standards, right? Nothing is efficient ever in life. We had 450 to 500 trucks crossing. Thinking about connecting the border to the port electronically was a little hilarious, right? It was something that any shareholder would tell you, you don't have nothing else to think about. Today, probably that is your priority number 1, is to make sure that your system talks to the systems at the border. And we are already moving inside the port, preparing ourselves to do that connection, so that we know from the mine to the point the truck gets into the port, where the truck is the truck crossing the border, for how long is the truck sitting there, not by changing SMS through the system. That is an investment that if it was not for COVID, we would have done it probably a year or two later. So I'm not preaching here that COVID is a good thing. I don't want to be punched in the road out there. I'm just saying that I am in front of a lion and I'm going to be the one choosing which leg to give the lion to eat. And that is my focus at the moment. So COVID is also giving us the opportunity to be a little maverick, if I may say.
It's leading to its own innovation, isn't it? It certainly encourages that. Vishal?
Yeah, I think COVID's made us do and introspect quite a bit in terms of our processes. If I could share an example with everybody, through our car terminal MCTR, most of our imports of vehicles are for the local economy. And in relation to that, we had a huge amount of people that come through to the terminal on a daily basis for quotations in terms of clearing and forwarding and following paperwork and so forth. And in a very short space of time, proud to say that the team in Maputo developed an online system that we then went on to a Facebook and a Twitter platform, which removed the amount of people or the need for people to get to the terminal. So you removed the interaction with people, lots of people, remove the people risk. And it's been phenomenal what the teams have been able to do. The consequences of that is a huge amount of now electronic queries that comes through, and you can kind of sift through that and apply a workforce to deal with the queries in a timely manner. So, but that's just part of change management, but evolution. But good to see technology come to the fore to remove a particular risk in the business. Yeah, so good experience and great to see what the local teams were capable of doing in a very short space of time.
Absolutely. No, thanks for that, Vishal. So actually, Chris, one of the things that Osorio was talking about was obviously the mitigation measures that have been undertaken in the port. It's kind of a multi-million-dollar question, this one, but these are predicated on returning to normality. And I think some of the Chrome stats there that you were showing, Osorio, showed that actually it's recovered remarkably well and remarkably quickly. But when do you believe, Chris, that normality such as it is will return, might be resumed? And if it's not possible at this time, what are the priority measures that you believe will need to be revisited?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Well, I think normality, we as we know it now, we will never return to again. So I think we'll, like Vishal mentioned, it will be a new normality. And I don't think it will be, we'd have to look at it in a negative way from that perspective. Like the car terminal, how they improve their processes, what he just mentioned. We have a similar example at DP World, that the container release process was always very bureaucratic, very manual. And we've been working with different parties for many months and years how to try to get that more electronic. And it never really worked. And now basically overnight, there was the necessity, and we introduced a much more efficient process, which will remain even after the crisis. So we made a technological leap through this new environment. And I think there's many more examples in this way, also less traveling. Maybe it's not important to fly halfway around the world for a 2-hour meeting with someone. Maybe we can do that through things like Zoom or other measures now, which maybe the environment will be thankful for in the long term. So I think it will be a different normality. And from a business perspective, you know, when you look at international supply chains, there's many very long lead times in there. So what we feel in the container terminal now, the reduced volumes are based on decisions that have been taken in Q1, maybe in China or wherever. And now with Europe and North America and other parts of the world slowly opening up again, the decisions that they will take now, we will see in many months down the road. So I don't think there are many jobs have been lost, and then many jobs will still be lost over the next few months in other parts of the world, and there will be a reduced buying power, and there will be less trade in the midterm at least. And so for us, it's too early to judge at this stage what the exact impact will be for Maputo for the corridor. But like you say, and like Osorio said, certain commodities are coming up, but it will, I think, be a long road. So we need to wait and see. And what we focus on is housekeeping, you know, tackle our processes and see what we can improve, get our costs down and improve our service.
So one of the questions that had come through was also saying what might be the impact on your strategy in terms of returning to normal. What would be the impact of other ports on the way in which Maputo can actually return to normality?
I think it's every port, not every, but most of the ports all face different situations. How they position. Some are only like are drowning in volumes because they can't ship things on. So it's difficult to learn a lot from others at this stage. But I think what we just have to at the moment look at our costs. If the border is closed, then there's little we can do about it. And,
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Vishal, do you have anything else to add from the minerals perspective?
So from a minerals perspective, because of iron ore, magnetite and coal, two very different experiences. So magnetite has come back strongly. We're heading towards being almost back to 100% of our prior capacities in June going forward. And the pricing for magnetite looks really good in the market. Having said that, though, one of my personal concerns is a delayed supply and demand response. So we may be good to fill up inventories now, keep the smelters going in the likes of China, but as world demand then drops off in time to come, we may see a drop off in the demand for magnetite and the pricing. So I think for now we're doing the best we can to capture the opportunity. So that's a good news stories. With regards to coal, and particularly India shutting down for COVID-19, the demand has fallen through the floor. We've seen coal prices like we haven't in decades. And as a result for that, South African coal has become less attractive in international markets. And that's really has seen a dry up of supply through to Maputo and terminals in South Africa. So yeah, two halves. Hoping to see the opening up of Asian economies from a coal perspective, and then we'd see volumes improve and hoping for pricing to improve as well.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'm going to ask each of you questions around the actual Maputo development corridor in a minute. But Osorio, I just want to ask you a question that's come through from someone in the audience. It said, I'd be grateful if Mr. Lucas could share any additional incentives that have been extended towards the newly launched cabotage services.
Thank you. We have agreed with the government a reduction on costs for the cabotage coastal shipping, right? Service. Those costs will be in the region of 50 to 60% cut to coastal shipping business. But we need to remember that the coastal shipping, as any other business, is a demand and supply issue. You need to generate enough volume to then justify some of those cost cuttings that are coming. But the rates for cabotage will definitely be much lower than they are for international trade. That is a guarantee. But there is one statement two statements I'd like to make, John, to profit from this. One is that on the digitalization front, thank God, all the digitalization changes that are happening at MPDC are happening with local young people. So we are not hiring from anyone. The second message is from a philosopher called Osorio Lucas, which is for you to think long term, you need to be alive on the short term. So even on cabotage, whatever you choose, you need to be alive. We cannot go around overspending and being too lyric. We are trying to contain ourselves. So even the cabotage, we will start, but we will have to start slow, making sure that the business is sustainable at the end of the day.
Excellent. Thanks for that. So let's talk about the Maputo development corridor, because you showed, you centered on that on one of your slides in the presentation, the particular areas of investment. How has this initiative been affected by the COVID-19? Because this is very much, this is a question that's not just for yourselves. This is the impact on everybody else who's at the other end of the supply chain, isn't it? So, Osorio, maybe if you could start off with this one. I'd like to get the views of Vishal and Christian as well on this one. But how do you think that COVID-19 has affected that corridor?
In two ways. One negative and the one positive. The negative, I think I've shown in my charts. The number of trucks came down, number of volume is down, but there's two positive messages. One, you remember that in one of my slides, we indicated that the rate of, or the quota of revenue volume was just around 25%. Now, because of the situation in the border, there is a lot of vibe to try and revamp the railway services. You now see the number of trains improving by necessity, The second conversation is we have been talking about a 24-hour border for too long. Even before I came into the system 25 years ago. COVID brought a new conversation. It's not a win, it's a must. Now everybody's talking the need of having a 24-hour border. I would prefer that these two issues have happened without COVID, but if it is because of COVID, they should happen anyway.
This is it. Often, things like this, I say things like this doesn't happen all the time. It's a generational thing, but this acts as a catalyst for making change, which everybody knows needs to happen, doesn't it? Vishal, have you got, what are your thoughts around the corridor?
Yeah, so pretty much aligned with Osario's view. My particular focus supporting MPDC as well as Grindrod's activities has been around increasing rail performance and the carry capacity to our ports and terminals. So happy to say, you know, with COVID and ongoing business activities, lots of work going on with our channel partners, which is CFM, Transnet TFR, Port MPDC, ourselves, in a collaborative way to increase the volumes on the channel, because the channel does have the slot capacity for many more millions of tons. So it's about how do we, you know, root out the inefficiencies on the channel, the bottlenecks, the likes of rolling stock can come together to bring in more volume on rail, for particularly our bulk commodities, which both MPDC and the Grindrod Terminals focuses on. And I think very much in line with a road to rail migration, that has to be the way to move bulk commodities. And then it reduces the number of people and interaction with people as well, because if you look at the volumes that rail gets through versus trucks, I mean, it's orders of magnitude different.
So investment in the infrastructure, and is much of that actually going on? I suspect it's planned, but is much actually going on? And
there's a lot. Yeah, there is a lot going on, and I have to say, you know, apologies for talking on behalf of CFM. From a rail perspective, I can attest to investment in the recent period on rolling stock in terms of locos and purchasing new locos, as well as wagons. They've just recently placed an order for 300 wagons with Transnet Engineering, and these are bulk commodity wagons, and this comes on the back of having invested on 200 wagons last year. So from a CFM perspective, very much see lots of positive activity in increasing their capacity. And then parallels with Transnet, I think there's a big focus on ensuring that the current infrastructure is maintained and then improved on.
Okay, thanks, Vishal. Chris, I'm going to kind of ask you a similar question, but if you don't mind, I'm going to throw you a curveball as well. Because we've had, I think, just looking through the Q&A, there's a few questions that are coming in that are wanting to know what the impact is around exchange rates, I beg your pardon, and the impact on, you know, Rand, etc. I mean, how will that have an impact in terms of Maputo specifically, but maybe the development corridor as well?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. In my past, being involved in cross-border traffic, also on the Beira corridor, we've always seen that, or we always compare our costs, obviously, against Durban, our main competitor in certain commodities. And yeah, when the Rand devaluates from whatever it did, 13 to 18, it has a huge impact on our competitiveness. However, there always seems to be a cost adjusting also on the other side. So it's not, you can't really say it's then cargo moves and then it doesn't. It always turns out if people really want to look for alternatives, it's not only driven by costs. There's other things, the reliability. They might just want to try out other things because they're not satisfied with something that they're using at the moment. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but I don't think it kills off a corridor itself.
No. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on slightly, Osorio, I wanted to ask you about the overall planning, the strategy and planning for the port. Obviously, as you said, effectively with the concessions and the extensions, that takes you through to about 2043 on current planning. Have you, two parts to the question, if you don't mind, does the current situation cause any revision to that strategy and that planning? I suspect I know the answer to that part, but the second part, one or two questions coming in about the overall master plan. If you could perhaps just elaborate a little bit on what that includes, perhaps what it doesn't include. Does it include the whole sort of transport infrastructure, etc.?
Okay, thank you. For your question, I think we have the same answer. It's a no, right? This is a long-term thing, and we have to think on the future. We will have some hiccups here or there during this COVID, but the port goes beyond the COVID. So in terms of our strategic plan, nothing has changed. Few things changed in our action plan. What we do today, that we would do different if COVID was not there. But our long thinking is the same. And what is the key elements of that? Investment on digitalizing the port. And as I told you, because of COVID, today you are not thinking about a digital port. You need to think about a digital corridor, making sure that you connect from the mine or from the collecting point to the vessel, all the way, right? So that is one of the pillars. The second pillar is your people. This port had a lot of, it was a transfer from CAPM to a private sector in 2003, with a lot of people in, very valuable people. But you need to start thinking in the future, right? If you're digitalizing the port, you need different kind of mindset. So you need to invest in converting your human capital or bringing new generation into the port, which is happening. When I took over in 2012, around 71% of the people were 8th grade or less. And we are all in the port environment. We know what people think about the port environment. It's not for super duper clever people. Today, more than 40% of our staff is university grade or more, even as operators, by the way, machine drivers and so on and so forth. So that is the second element you need. Then the third is infrastructure development. As we spoke, it's happening as we go. And finally, is making sure that this port serves the country. Despite of being a regional port, Mozambicans have to be proud of this place. They have to see value in here. And the only way you can do that is by providing a proper procurement system, by training people. We have a training school, that is a training center rather, and we are training people that don't only work for the port. Our vision is to train people that can then be available for better port on a color port. And this is not because I'm here to serve the community. It's a survival tool as well. If you don't train your competition will come and collect from you. So it's nothing naive. So those are the four main pillars that I would elect in our strategy. And this is definitely going despite of anything.
Okay, thank you for that. I've had a couple of questions coming through specifically and more immediately, rather than the longer term thing, the more immediate impact of COVID-19. I think when you'd been talking about the impact on staff, etc. in there, what's the situation? Have there been job losses, or in fact, the alternative, the vice versa to that? Have there actually been opportunities for jobs created in the port?
There was no job losses directly in MPDC. We are being able to keep our staff in its integrity, right, very much due to the contingency plans we put in place. We had to reduce costs elsewhere to be able to keep our staff. But this is the direct employment. But when you reduce the volume, you will have less stevedores, you will have less transporters. So I suspect there will be a considerable impact in the system around the port. In terms of job creation, I think at this time, speaking about job creation, it's a nice talk. I don't think it's a reality. protecting your eggs is probably your first focus. Now, making sure that COVID goes and the port is ready to attract additional people, that is what we need to do, but not thinking of new opportunities today. Today, the opportunity is to streamline your systems, making sure that whoever is here works 3 times more, probably from home, but 3 times more.
Vishal, did you have something to add to that? Yeah.
Yes, John, I did. I think the approach from us as an organization, from my leadership team, was to ensure that we kept our people component whole through this period. I think it was very important to be able to keep people employed. I think it's a responsible approach because that then relates to keeping the economies going in times to come. Having to create a balance with that, I have to say we had phenomenal support from our employees in Maputo with regards to our approach to austerity measures. We did take in to use annual leave when we shut down and were largely quiet, as well as some related short-term cuts, so to speak, but thankfully and grateful and happy to say that they were very short-term. Yeah. So we're back on track, but I think most importantly, kept the organization whole with regards to the employment of people.
I think the resilience that's been shown by MPDC has been excellent, especially with the graphs that you were looking at earlier. And had another question in here. It's a good question. Obviously, potentially, there could be another second wave, another spike that happens. Given that you showed the resilience with the first one, are you comfortable? Are you confident that you'll be able to respond to a second one should that come? Sorry, I should ask that one. I can ask that of any of you. Who'd like to dive in on that?
Chris, you have this one for free for me.
There's a ball being passed here. Chris.
I think we tried to, we learned a lot during the current times, and then we tried the increased hygiene, and these are things to stay, and also our contingency plans are not something that when we scale back now and open up, the plans will remain. We can quickly react. We have seen, I think, over the last months that we were very quick to respond and kept the port operational. There are directives that we should only work with 1/3 of our staff, and even during that time, we managed to handle all the vessels. We managed to keep our gate operational, and I don't think there was much impact on our clients. So even if we go back to normal now, if there's a second wave, we can roll out these measures immediately. Most of our people have now laptops at home. They can immediately go back to work from home. So I think it made us very strong, not only to react against a second wave, but also against other natural disasters like, I don't know, cyclones or whatever. I think we became stronger through that.
Mm.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Christian, John. I think the resilience that we've seen come into the business and people and our employees coming to the fore, technologies enable things, the levels of connectivity and commitment. It's an interesting one because I think people's effectiveness and application in the workforce increased working remotely versus being in the office, which is dealt with an old-time fallacy that, you've got to be behind a desk, seen in the office to be working, which is ludicrous. We've seen unparalleled approaches by our staff and contribution through this period, and very heartening, and appreciative of that. And I think we've learned how to work, I think being distanced requires a lot greater sensitivity to engage with one another at a human level and to try and support one another as well. So we've seen lots of soft positives come across in terms of the engagement across our teams.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, could you perhaps elaborate again on another point that you made in your presentation? Obviously, a number of measures that you've taken to handle port operations. How are you able to approach the idea of making, I suppose, the cargo handling, etc., COVID-19 free? How are you actually managing to deal with that?
Okay, thanks. I would like just to go back to your question on the second wave, just to make a statement. I believe that a second wave is not the first wave. So by then we will have known a lot. And if something, in my opinion, not outside the port now, if something needs to change, is the way these situations are communicated. The kind of shocking surprise that should not be there is a second wave. Because a lot of the impacts of COVID, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, have to do with the way this was presented. It was a shock, no one is prepared, no one knows nothing. By now we know a number of things. We don't know a lot, but we know a number of things. So a second wave shouldn't have nothing to do with the first wave. Now, on the measures we took the measures that are recommended by the World Health Organization. They are not going to give anyone a guarantee that we can go COVID-free. We cannot say that. We do everything possible to make sure that we reduce the risk to a point where we went to the border between Mozambique and South Africa and we engaged the authorities there. We made donations in terms of equipment and other stuff to make sure that the control starts at the border. And we are now engaging the mining houses to make sure that they fill us with information of what protocols they have followed at the mine before the cargo leaves the mine. So we can give people enough comfort that whatever we could do, we have that. But I'm not sure we can guarantee to anyone that we will be COVID-free. That I cannot, unfortunately.
Okay, no, thanks for that. I guess I get a lot of those sort of questions in the UK, and I think people are looking for 100% guarantees, and they're never going to get them, are they? So there's been a few questions around the, I suppose, the balance of the type of business that you operate now. A question has come through suggesting, asking about the master plan and whether there's one that may be focused on trying to attract more containerized cargo and general cargo, making it less dependent on commodities. Who would like to pick that one up?
I can say something to that.
Yeah.
I mean, as DP World, we have tremendous growth plans here. We believe in the corridor and we believe in the region. So, like the other question that was posed earlier is like if we defer or if we change our strategy here. From DP World, it's no, we're not changing our strategy in the long term because we still believe that the potential is here and that the volumes will materialize. In the short term, we might slow things down and look at every dollar we spend twice. But I think it's very important for the port of Maputo to get a bit better cargo mix, absolutely. And I think we work very well together with MPDC in trying to achieve that.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. One or two of the projects that you've got going on, Osorio, as well. I noted about the phases 1 and 2 going on with regards berth rehabilitation. How have those been affected, or have they been affected at all? And I think a couple of them were due for completion around July. Are they on track?
Yeah, they have been affected. They're now pushed to September and December. And how are they being affected? Number one, imports of certain materials. They had to come from South Africa, and the borders were closed. Even if they are open, the processes are complex. And the number two is experts. There are specific places where you need experts coming from overseas, and they cannot fly in. So we are now pushing these works up to September or December, but those are the impacts we have to live with. The issue is we need to think long term. If they're not ready in July, they will be ready in December, but they have to be ready. That's the point. They have to be ready. When the economy picks up, I don't want to be debating what I should have done. I'm not going to entertain that kind of conversation. Is I ready or not? And the world is made for winners.
Indeed. Okay, no, that's good. So again, you're sort of demonstrating the resilience there at MPDC, which is excellent. There are questions also about neighbouring ports and about the LNG terminal, the effect potentially on oil and gas. Do you see these as being anything that's going to have a particular effect on the business? Vishal, I'll probably ask that one of you, I guess. You've got your mute on, sorry.
I'll take a view on just kind of mining commodities, bulk commodities. I think we see Richards Bay as a big competitor to ports in Maputo. And I think, you know, you got to remain competitive. I think that's what's going to make a difference in the environment, because with the rand devaluing, it's put us under pressure from a dollar perspective. So I think competition from neighboring ports are real. And I think we've got to do the best that we can with what we have. And we've certainly seen we've won cargoes from particular customers, basis our performance, reliability, and as well as we can't forget the berth deepening project that we've had in the last period. That's allowed us to bring larger vessels in and allow us to be more cost efficient by virtue of bringing larger vessels in. So that's given us some advantages in the recent period as well. So yeah, I think you just got to stay ahead of competition and keep yourself relevant.
No, absolutely. Chris, have you got any further thoughts around activities on the terminal, especially around the LNG projects that are going on as well, whether or not MPC is willing to support those?
Yeah, I think I can reply to that. I had a few queries on LNG, but we need to remember Maputo is 3,000 miles from Pemba, where the LNG project is taking place. So if we can do anything, is to be the support tool to the economy happening up there. But we will never be the main line of relationship. There are some initiatives taking place in terms of being a backup area for consolidation or the consolidation of cargo. That is being discussed, but the prime ports will be likely Nacala. My vision is we are very happy to be a secondary port to LNG, but we are not happy to be a secondary port if the prime port is outside Mozambique. If the prime port is called Nacala or Pemba or anything, I'm very happy to be secondary or not even to be known about it. But if it's crossing border, then MPDC is the port number one. Put it simple.
Indeed. Chris, did you have something else that you wanted to add there? I could see you nodding to it.
No, I fully agree with what Osorio is saying, and but also earlier, I think here in general with the competition between the ports, I think we need to see also when we look at a cargo coming from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and places.
Oh, I think we might have lost Chris there.
He's crossing the border.
He's crossing the border. We need that 24-hour operation. Look, what I was going to do, I've got one more question particularly to ask you, Osorio, about some of the community-based projects you've got. But if we can get Chris back, that would be great. But Vishal, I'll also ask if you wouldn't mind just to get your sort of last thoughts, any of those. If you can collect yourself for that. I want to just ask Osorio a question. Osorio, you got, it's great to hear of large-scale organisations and development, dealing with development initiatives that give back to the community. And I noted when I was looking into this a little bit more, you've got projects, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing these correctly, but Innovate and Porto Plus. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing there?
Okay. There is two important projects that you refer to. They're not the same. One is what we call Innovat, which in English I would say innovate yourself, where we created a boot camp and brought kids from university to understand the port and develop IT solutions that the port would require. And this project is moving. The kids are bringing solutions that we never thought about. They are more clever than us, even if we don't like to accept it. It's true. And they are now bringing these solutions in. The IT team is now working to unpack them, and I hope we can inaugurate the first project sooner than later. This is one. The other one is the one that makes me probably the main reason why the day I leave MPDC, I can live and say, I've been proud of one thing, is to be part of this Port Plus project. When we started, I was told that's trying to get people with disabilities, for the lack of better word, intellectual challenges to work, it was not possible. You know who told me that? Their parents themselves. The mothers, they were telling me, no, it's not gonna work, it's not good, my kid is not prepared for that, he has never been out of house for working, they don't know how to do these things. And I said, how do you know they don't know if you never try? You remember how we finished our presentation? Try hard, fail hard, try again, fail again.
Exactly.
Try again, fail again. We tried, and these kids are very proud employees. There is one kid that came as disabled, and now he works at operations. We then developed a book that I will forward to you electronically, which is a book with the stories of life of these kids. The book is not about MPDC. It's about how they got transformed and how their families got transformed. There is this little story there of a guy that said that he was losing his social life. He was losing his, he was divorced. And just because he got a job and he was proud of himself, he got his marriage back and he got accepted by the family and the society around him. If this sport needs to go bankrupt for these kind of things to continue, so be it. But it's a little extremist, but you got the idea, right? Nothing of bankruptcy, but that's the idea. And this project is happening.
Well, fantastic initiatives. It's fantastic to hear about that. I could actually talk more about that. I must admit, it's certainly good to hear the values that companies have got and how they're giving back. So let me, Chris, sorry, you obviously, we just lost you for a second or two. I just wanted to ask each of you just for some final thoughts and comments before we wrap up. So I'm going to start with Vishal because I prompted him first. So Vishal, your thoughts just to sort of round up.
I think, you know, I have a view there's going to be winners and losers in the world and the economies that we work in. I tried to encourage my team to keep a winning attitude. I think we need to be circumspect around the changes and as supply and demand changes in the world, and that will impact the way we make our decisions. But we've learned to be resilient. You need to be agile and respond to the needs of our customers and the economy. So I'm quietly positive. While I do recognize there may be some lull coming into the future, the second wave, as you've referred to it, and we're going to have to brace ourselves to weather that storm. So important to be tight on our costs, but also chase the cargoes that we can, because the top line makes a significantly more different outcome than saving costs. And just keep yourselves relevant to your customer base. So, you know, those are my closing thoughts. I'm optimistic. We'll weather the storm and come out good on the other side.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. Chris, thoughts from you? Chris, are you? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, similar. Excellent opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, similar. What I think it's an excellent opportunity to look into our habits and how we've been doing things, and if there are other ways to do it. We were forced to do certain changes, and they turned out to be very positive, and we will maintain them, and we will take this the coming months also to further improve on these things, and also be more aggressive on then following up on our sales again once things start again. So yeah, I think we will come out stronger.
Excellent, thank you. And the last word goes to you, Osorio. Your thoughts.
Thank you. I go on the same line of Vishal and Chris. I would like probably to end this conversation with a punchline, which for me is COVID will go, we will stay.
Fantastic, as simple as that. That's wonderful. Gentlemen, Vishal, Chris, and of course Osorio, thank you very much for your input, your insights, and it's been fascinating to find out more about the workings at MPDC and also the plans that you've got for the future, the challenges, etc. And to everybody else, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm going to hand back to Daniel, but I just wanted to say thanks for all the questions. I'll let Daniel let us know how we can answer all the ones that I was unable to ask on your behalf. But thank you very much. Daniel, can I pass you back over?
Yes, and thanks, John. Thanks, everybody. I think we can agree. John, well done. Excellent moderating. You were cool under pressure. I think we were firing off a question every second, basically, and John was trying to frantically make sure that everything's answered. Also, thank you, Osorio Lucas. Thank you for your time. Vishal, Christian, I think we're going to agree in these times to speak to 3 inspirational leaders like yourselves. I think you're doing all a fantastic job amidst COVID-19, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen, obviously, post everything. To comment on what John was saying, these questions, I've already been assured, Osorio, by your office, that the questions, we are collating all the questions because we understand there wasn't enough time to answer everything. We will get to answering all these questions, and when we do share next week this recording, the presentation, will also share the questions that will be answered by Osorio, or if he decides to delegate it to his team as well. But thank you, everybody, again. We really appreciate your time, and we thank you to all the panelists. We saw some people from all over the world: Australia, France, Kenya, Ghana, the UK. So it's fantastic to see how the industry is doing. And we look forward. If you have any queries, I have put my details in the chat session, danielbloch@dmgevents.com. We will be hosting the Transport Evolution Mozambique Forum and Showcase, 13 to 15 April, inside the port of Maputo, hosted by MPDC and Osorio Lucas. So we look forward to seeing you all for the next session of digital platforms that we'll be hosting. And please stay safe. I would say drive safe home. If you are in your office at the moment, then drive home safe. If you are at home, get up safely with your chairs. And we will all be in contact soon. Thank you so much to everybody, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.